Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Bullhead channel. I'm Josh Williams and I'm joined by David Hughes as ever. Dave, how's things, mate?
Very good, thank you, mate. I feel pressure to try and mix it up, but I've got nothing new to say. So, on the whole, I'm good, mate. And you?
I suppose we could talk about my ankle. That'd mix it up a little bit, wouldn't
it? Yeah. tell the people about what caused it. Actually, I can't remember what caused it.
Do you know what? I think if I was a player, right, and you were scouting me, I think one of the perks that I would offer would be a clean bill of health. I don't usually get injured, but this week went over on my ankle, sprained ankle, blew up like a balloon. Very frustrating. Dave was there actually. Dave caused it. No, it was just one of them freak injuries, non-contact. But yeah, I'm suffering in a way, but still fit enough to do podcast duty.
I tell you what, mate, it wouldn't be a good sign if I caused it, considering we were on the same team.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, back to today's episode. So, because it's kind of a bit of a middle of the road type point of the season, we have EFL Cup games and FA Cup game. We're not going to talk about Shrewsbury then like that. Premier League's had a bit of a break. So we're going to kind of elaborate on last week's theme and redo the scouting episode that we do every now and then. It's kind of got no real fixed theme. Me and Dave just choose 3 players each from world football that we like the look of and that we want to flag, we want to talk about for whatever reason. They don't really have to have a specific age, although we tend to go down the route of younger players. They don't really have to be linked with Liverpool or suited to Liverpool in this specific moment. We don't really have much of a criteria. We just do these episodes every now and then, scouting episodes where we just flag players that we just like for whatever reason.
Let's be honest, we do it so in a year's time when he signs to a big club, we can say, hey, remember we told you about him? There's plenty of ego behind it.
How many of them have we had? Have we had any of them? Success stories?
Yeah, we've had a few. You know, we talked about Jonathan David when we originally spoke about him. Obviously, he was still playing in Belgium. I'm trying to think of...
I think the last one that we did, I flagged a lad called Josko Gradiel, who is now at RB Leipzig and played in the Euros shortly after I flagged him. And he's having a good season as well. He's playing well.
We've had a few. Damsgaard, Danny Almo.
While he was at Zagreb, yeah.
Yeah, at Zagreb, and he obviously went to Leipzig. So there's been a couple. And there's been a few that, you know, people have flagged to us and then they've ended up making moves on the back of these shows, which is always good. So, you know, if people do have any afterwards when they listen or watch in, you know, by all means flag them and we'll touch base in a year and see how they got on.
Yeah, so sometimes we talk about obvious players, like for example, I remember talking about Martin Odegaard. But sometimes we talk about very, very obscure players, like Dave, for example, talking about a lad who played centre half in the Polish second division or something. It was, I think.
Yeah, in my defence, though, right? All we wanted to do on that is show how a club may initially use data to bring together shortlists. And the example I used of him, I can't even remember his name, and I think I followed him up like a year and a half later, and he'd not really progressed. But I think I used him as the example because I was just showing how he showed up really well on some metrics, and that might act as a starting point for the club to then, you know, scout and investigate further. But I feel like he's haunted me like a ghost ever since then.
No, it was a good shout at the time. I liked it. It was very, very obscure, very hipster. But we'll get into it and we'll get into this week's episode. So, Dave, I'll let you go first, mate.
You always let me go first. I really appreciate it, mate. But I feel like
flag as well.
We
should flag as well, as usual. We don't know each other's picks, so I suppose there's every chance that we could have the same player, but given the wide range and scouting, you know, concede leads everywhere all over the place, I doubt it this week.
Yeah. I wonder if people think that we make that bit up because we don't, to be fair. But yeah, I'll start afar and then I'll work my way closer to home as the episode goes on. And this player is someone that may be on the radar of more and more people now. because of how well he's doing. But it's a forward called Julian Alvarez, who's playing for River Plate, obviously in South America. He is a 21-year-old, and it's difficult when we talk about players predominantly playing in South America, because I think it's traditionally a continent where you can maybe do really well, score a lot of goals, but not necessarily have an ability that's translatable to the European game. Obviously, a lot of players do come from that continent and do really well, but I think it's just difficult to gauge when playing over there just how good a player is. That being said, I think we're looking at the real deal here. He's a right-footed forward. He's not a huge player in terms of size or physicality. He's 5'7", but he's a real handful with bags of ability. Really good technical skill. He gets used in different roles for River Plate. He's been out wide and in the number 10, but he predominantly looks at his very best as a centre forward, as a striker. Over last year, the domestic seasons are over different dates there, but over 2021, he played roughly, when you break it down, roughly about 34 games, or the equivalent of 34 90s. And in that time, he scored 24 goals and registered 16 assists. So, that's all competitions, but it's still a pretty outrageous return for a 21-year-old. Now, I can't speak for all competitions, but I know specifically in the league, at least, none of those goals were penalties. So, he's got a really, really good return. And there's rumours that there's a potential buyout clause in his contract of 25 million, which, again, touched at the start of the segment, there's a little bit of a risk with players coming from there. But if you think about how high his ceiling could be, then 25 million isn't a lot for a player who could, go on to be a fantastic talent. He's actually already made it into the Argentinian squad as well, the national team, which is a testament to his ability. So he's definitely one to watch going forward.
Yeah, I think he might be linked at the minute with Manchester United, is he potentially, or someone like that. And I think Jordan, our last Q&A, when we asked for players to speak about, for listeners to send in players to speak about, I think someone asked for him, but I'm not sure we got round to him in the end. But he's a player that I actually need to do my work on, actually, because I'm not too clued up on him. I need to do a bit of research around him.
Yeah, to be fair, this is his kind of breakout year. He's not someone who's been lingering in the background. He's just kind of come to fruition now, and that'll be why the links kind of to like United are there. But he's probably one that in the next few years, I'm almost certain you'll get a move to Europe. If we talk it from a Liverpool perspective, which I guess we sometimes touch on when we're doing these, I couldn't imagine it being, a move to Liverpool. I think it'll be one of those kind of, more the traditional South America to European club routes first. So you can help me out on this, Josh. So maybe like a Shakhtar Donetsk, or like a Basel, someone like that.
Yeah.
And those traditional paths, and then
like a Porto.
And then maybe onto one of the bigger boys in Europe. But I definitely want to watch.
Yeah, interesting show. So you started far afield, I'll start close to home, and we'll go the other way. So my players, a lad who many people will be aware of, not a particularly alternative shout, just a player who I have liked the look of whenever I've seen him, and it's Jacob Ramsey at Aston Villa. As I said, it's a difficult one, this, because I'm not sure how good he is, and I'm not really sure how good he's going to be either. He's just a player that I have liked the look of whenever I've watched him. I think he's got nice qualities. I think he generally looks very well rounded as a central midfielder, despite his age. He's only 20 now. And he's obviously English and homegrown, which I think is going to be more and more of a thing moving forward in the Premier League, given the impact of Brexit and things like that. I think the top clubs in particular are just going to have more of a focus, place more of an emphasis on on signing the best homegrown players. And I think considering Ramsey's only 20, looks like versatile as well. He's played as centre midfield as number 8, and he's played as a number 10 as well, moving a little bit further forward. And he just looks like he's got quite an adaptable skill set. Not as complete as these players that I'm going to reference now, but shades of like a Wijnaldum and a Bellingham, that type of well-rounded game where the player's mobile, physical, strong, good first touch, all those nice qualities really. He's obviously coached now by Steven Gerrard, which is not a bad thing considering Gerrard's midfield career. And if Gerrard potentially further down the line comes to Liverpool, say in 2024 or whatever it is, another 2 years' time, by then Ramsey will be maybe 23. If he's really, really progressed, could be one of them where Gerrard potentially brings him with him or whatever, because Gerrard will know how good he is working every day with him. And from a data perspective, obviously he hasn't played too much yet. He's only burst onto the scene the past 12 months maybe. But he does show up in comparison to his peers for some areas like pressures in comparison to midfielders, progressive carries in comparison to other midfielders. And he offers a bit of a threat as well. He scored a few times for Villa. So yeah, not too much of a special shout just to start us off, but as I said, he's just a player that I like the look of, and I think considering the whole Brexit impact on the transfer market moving forward, I'd be interested to see what this lad looks like in 5 years' time. We've got another 5 years before he reaches what I deem to be prime years. So yeah, he's just a player who's took my attention a little bit whenever I watch Villa.
Yeah, he seems to be getting a little bit of attention all around, but it's not in the sense of kind of transfer interest, because at the stage where he's at, only just coming in to the Villa setup, really, he's coming into prominence. You wouldn't expect him to be getting linked with moves away, but he does look a good player. So maybe, further down the line, a move like that materialises, and maybe with that Gerrard connection, it could be something that sparks the interest of Liverpool in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, as I said, Liverpool go for these really well-rounded midfielders that are kind of jacks of all trades type thing. And just looking at Ramsey, he does look roughly in that mold where he's kind of pretty alright at everything, like 6, 7 out of 10 and across all departments. And as I said, he's only 20, so it's going to be interesting to see how he develops moving forward, Ramsey.
Yeah. So I'm working my way back a little bit closer to home. Going to Germany, I'm going to look at a left back called David Rom. He's 23 years old, and this is actually his first year in the Bundesliga, but he's doing really well. He joined from, I think the pronunciation is Greuther Fürth, isn't it? But he was with them last season in the Bundesliga too, and he was a really important player. Registered the league high 15 assists, helped them secure promotion. And then this season, he's kind of followed suit. He's hit the ground running at Hoffenheim, and there's a lot of likeable traits. He's 5'11", left-footed, obviously, but he's played a few different positions in the past, which I guess is a bit of a nod to his technical ability. He's played on the wing, up front, but obviously he's a established left-back now. He actually scored and assisted on the weekend. I can't remember who he played, but I saw it flash up because I'd written about him recently, so I've been keeping a bit of an eye on him. But he's right up there this season in terms of expected assists in the division. I think there's only 3 players, maybe someone like Thomas Muller and 1 or 2 others across the whole division in every area of the pitch that's actually better than in terms of expected numbers, expected assists. And of course, he does take some set pieces, which is going to boost those numbers ever so slightly. But at just 23, I think he's a really, really interesting player, especially in a position, like left back, which is quite important in the modern game. Left back, left wing back, and there's just likable traits behind him. So I think he's a player that is slowly coming into prominence. Now he's competing in Germany's top division. He's actually been capped now by Germany. He's made it into the national side, and I expect if he becomes a regular for Germany in the years to come, which is difficult because of how good this side is, but if he's at least a regular in the squad, then I do expect that there'll be a lot more interest around him. So he's one to watch for sure. You know, he could end up making a move into the Premier League. Again, you look at Liverpool and you think, would it be a move to Anfield? I'm not sure. But certainly the Premier League, I expect that if he keeps developing at this rate to one day kind of end up on these shores.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in myself here, mate, because I think he slipped under my radar. I'm not aware of him. But I've just got up his FBMF page now. His numbers look good, specifically in attack. Looks like very attack-minded fullback. And his statistical comparisons, the players who he shows up most like in terms of fullbacks, you've in the top 10, you've got like Reece James in there, Sergio Reguilon, Angelino, who's at RB Leipzig now, Sergio Aurier used to be at Spurs. So yeah, I'll have to keep an eye on him because he does look decent there. There's numbers and stuff like that. And as you said, he posting 13 assists for doing the first and then getting picked up by Hoffenheim's the kind of just under the radar little scout move that's probably underrated.
Yeah, that's it. And you can imagine probably because he has been operating in lower divisions, that's how he slipped under the radar a little bit. But now he's in the Bundesliga and he's performing really well there. You expect that he's really going to grow into prominence, and he's probably one to get on all our radars now, you know, because he'll probably end up somewhere bigger and better in the next few years. Still just 23. Yeah.
So I'm going to go from the Premier League and jump over to League One in France. And I'm going to go with a player called Amine Gouiri at Nice. So a few years back, this lad came on my radar. I think he was about 16. And it was around the time that Leon, I hope I've got this right. It was around the time that Leon kind of had a bit of an overhaul as to how they do things. Yeah, he was at Leon, yeah. Because they were getting, their kind of model wasn't working really. So they kind of give their academy a real boost. They started focusing on their academy as to how they would kind of develop, how they would survive in the footballing world type thing. And I'm pretty sure at the time, Amine Gouiri was one of the poster boys of the academy, one of the players tipped to have bags of potential and stuff like that. But I didn't pay much attention to it beyond that. I just remember him being a big prospect and stuff. And then he showed up on my radar a little bit last season, but he was playing for Nice. And I thought it might have been on loan, but he's not. He's actually been sold to Nice, I think. So he's permanently at Nice now, which I was quite surprised by, considering how he was bigged up as a child, as a teenager and stuff. Now he's 21 years old. Very soon he's 22. But at Nice, he's starting to kind of showcase the ability alongside the potential that was kind of always there. Last season, in his first season at Nice, he scored 12 League One goals and registered 7 assists, although 4 of those were penalties. And this season, already, he's got 9 goals and 5 assists, 2 of which have been penalties. But he's kind of like a forward attacking midfielder hybrid type player, I suppose, kind of like a Firmino in a way. He's also played on the left. He's likely to be attainable for any club, considering he's at Nice. And he'll have 2 years remaining on his contract this summer. So I think there's potential for a move there, considering he's showcasing a decent level. Good at set pieces, takes all the set pieces for Nice, penalties, corners, free kicks, really good technique. And he's good on the ball. You know, he's very dynamic on the ball, creative, places high against other strikers across Europe for getting on the ball, touches, for dribbles, carries, progressive passes. But he's a player, as I said, that I've been aware of for a while, and now he seems to be doing bits basically. but he's approaching 22, very right-footed. But he's a player that looks good, and he's a player that could potentially be one to make a step up soon.
Yeah, I remember doing a small piece on him. I can't remember. Say it might have been early in the year. Just because of that kind of the right-footed, being a right-footed ball, tending to operate a fair bit, kind of in the left area, left half space. And I don't know if it was a kind of like, could this one day be like a Mane successor? But I think it was part of a wider piece with a couple other names on there, so it wasn't particularly detailed. But yeah, really, really interesting attacker. He just seems to be doing a lot more in terms of output. He seems to have really good output recently. And yeah, I'll be honest, I was just having a look as we were talking, and I hadn't realised that has he not played for France yet? Has he not actually got his first cap?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. But
Yeah,
just looking at him now, he is playing as part of a front two this season.
right.
Christophe Galtier, who won the league last season with Lille, left, went to Nice. So the champion of League One, in a way, in terms of the coach, is now in charge of Goody. And he uses 4-4-2 pretty much all the time. And Goody's playing as part of a front two now with, I think, Kasper Dolberg more often than not, actually. And the second in League One. So we might be benefiting from that. But yeah, as I said, looks like a big prospect, and a prospect who's starting to fulfill his potential. But the only thing, if he hasn't played for France yet, and if Leon sold him, I'm completely. This is based on very, very little, but I can't understand why, unless he's a bit of a problem. Is he a problem? That sort of thing comes into my mind a little bit. Maybe I'm completely talking nonsense there, but I have to do some research as to why Leon sold him, because I was surprised by that at the time.
I'm trying to think if they maybe had profiles who played in that area when he was there. Did they still have like a who did they have? They had like players like the Pie, didn't they, and stuff.
Yeah, Hashem Ouar as well was there.
Yeah, so maybe it was just opportunities. And then you've just got similar issues, I suppose, with the French national team at the moment, haven't you? You've got like, Mbappe's and stuff in there. I guess it's not a straightforward task getting into the team. So it could be that. Do you think he's got a profile that would potentially interest Liverpool if there wasn't any of this sort of baggage that goes with it?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, Liverpool in the past tried to sign Nabil Fekir. He reminds me a little bit of him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's as much of an output merchant as Fekir. Well, in fact, Fekir was at Lyon, I think, at the time, wasn't he? So he could be another player that was maybe blocking his path. But I've just got it up now. Nice signed him for €7 million, which again is buttons. But apparently he must have had he got offered to go out on loan, but refused. I'm not sure if that makes him a problem or not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's one to watch though, and I do think he's vaguely in the mould of a Fekir or a Firmino type. That sort of tricky forward / attacking midfielder type.
Yeah, I agree. Right, well, again, a little bit. Well, I say a little bit closer to home, basically in the same area geographically, but I'll be interested to see if this play made yours, actually, Josh. This is the one I was a little bit nervous about because I think he's a player that's been really difficult to ignore this year. Looks an absolute elite top talent, and it's Florian Wirtz at Leverkusen. Yeah, I feel like we couldn't do a show like this without talking about him briefly because he's so hard not to be impressed by. I've actually minded because of the fact that they've competed in Europe this season. They've had a couple of games against Celtic, so they've been quite easy to catch. I've managed to actually watch him a few times beyond just looking at the numbers and highlights, and he's just an honestly exquisite talent. For those who don't know, he's only 18 years old, but He's already a huge key player for Leverkusen. I guess you could say, Josh, maybe if you're trying to think of not so much a comparison, because I think there are differences, but I guess he kind of took up the Havertz role, didn't he, once Havertz moved on to Chelsea. So he operates he can play many different positions in the attack, but you're mainly looking maybe like a number 10 or as an out-and-out striker. Leverkusen tend to play a 4-2-3-1 usually, and he's normally like in behind the lone striker. So like, I guess you call that the second striker. But I mean, we're only halfway through the season. He's got 8 goals, 10 assists across all competitions this season. And if you watch him, he's just an exquisite player. You know, his close control is fantastic. His distribution at times is just next level. So many good pinpoint passes. He seems to always be capable of these kind of like lob balls into the box, where he'll be in a tight area and he'll just flick it over the defender's head onto an attacker to shoot. He just seems to see things that are way beyond his age, and for me, I think he's probably one of the Europe's next big stars. You know, considering what he's producing now at 18, I expect him to go very high. Probably someone like Bayern Munich will suck him up, because that's what they seem to do with every kind of top talent in that division. But I'm pretty confident that we'll see him make a move to one of the super clubs soon, Josh.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised myself. I think I flagged him on one of these episodes a while back, and he showed up for me when he didn't show up for me in the numbers first. Actually, he first showed up for me during the first lockdown. And the first football that was back on in Europe was the Bundesliga. So I started watching it, and I watched Leverkusen a few times, and Wirtz was playing as a forward. And he looked good, he looked very active, very busy player and stuff like that. And then I obviously searched, who's this lad? This was when I became aware of Edmund Tapsoba as well. But I looked at Wirtz, and he was 17 at the time. And I was like, Jesus, I might have been 16, I don't know. But he is well beyond his years, and I think he is following a similar path to Havertz in terms of bursting onto the scene at Leverkusen, being German, and showcasing ability beyond his years. But Bayern couldn't pick up Havertz. Hopefully, they don't pick up Wirtz either.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see it. It'd be nice to maybe see him come to this country. See how he can kind of translate those abilities. Not right now, obviously, maybe in a year or two. But just talking about when you were saying when you come onto the scene a little bit, I'm trying to think if it was the European Championships, the under-21s in the summer, where he looked really good. I think he had 4 goals, and I'm off the top of my head, but I think he was impressive there. And I don't actually know if he's being capped by Germany yet. Let me have a look.
I think he might have.
Has he been capped now?
I think he might have, but I'm guessing a little bit there.
Yeah, no, he has, to be fair, yet. So, I mean, again, that's gonna raise his profile, isn't it? Competing with the national team now, and I imagine he'll be a big player for them for the next decade at least.
Yeah, interesting player. So, my last shout is Darwin Núñez at Benfica, striker, Uruguayan, and he's aged 22. He's 23 fairly soon. He's 23 in the next couple of months. So considering that he hasn't been around for too long, he hasn't been on the scene for that long. He initially kind of emerged at Almeria. He scored 11 league goals for Almeria in the second division of Spain. And then Benfica kind of picked up on his talent, picked him up for... In fact, I'm not sure how much he picked him up for. Double check now, actually. And then in his first season, so he picked him up for about 21.5 million. So not particularly cheap, actually. That's a fair amount to pay for a lad who's just performed in the second division of Spain. But in his first season at Benfica, he scored 6 goals in the league and registered 9 assists. So little bit of a slow start maybe. But this season, he's currently on 13 goals and 2 assists. And he looks just in the mould of a very traditional 9, I think, but with some South American qualities in there, if you like. He does remind, I hope this is not me being lazy with this, but he does remind me a tiny bit of Cavani. Obviously, he's from the same country as him, and both strikers, and they're both very much in the traditional 9 mould. And what I mean by a traditional 9 mould is you couldn't really imagine him ever being, some strikers you could play out wide as a wide forward. Not with this lad. I think he's pretty much through the middle, and that's kind of it. 6'1", good physical build, strong, aggressive. He can appear a little bit awkward at times, I think, when watching him, a little bit stiff and robotic almost. He's not the most fluid with his movements. Say for example, like a Sergio Aguero type forward maybe is, but he just looks like a good player. Looks like he's gonna get a move to Europe's top 5 leagues soon. Not particularly quick, but not slow either. Just kind of normal. So he is in that 9 mold. If you think of Lewandowski, if you think of Dusan Vlahovic, maybe Ruud van Nistelrooy, just players like that in a way. And I think he's been scouted a fair bit by clubs in the Premier League and Europe's top 5 leagues and stuff. So I'd expect him to move to Europe's top 5 leagues pretty soon. But yeah, I just sort of thought I'd flag him because he's showing potential. He hasn't been on the scene very long, and he's kind of part of a little bit of a dying breed, really, isn't he, in terms of the traditional 9? So yeah, I thought I'd give him a shout.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'd love to try and blag it now. I've not really seen anything of him. I know he has a good goal record this year. I've saw a few loose links to clubs, but I don't know anything of him. Just looking at his profile now, he's quite tall, isn't he? 6'2". I can see what you mean about that traditional kind of number 9 profile. It's handy to have, and you don't see a lot of it in forward players. You can only really think of, like you said, Lewandowski, maybe Haaland. He's obviously got a good profile, but yeah, it's is he quite good in the air at all? Does he score many header goals or anything?
I think he does.
Yeah.
But because it's the Portuguese league, there's just kind of less data available around that. I'd have to watch all of his goals back. But one thing I have noticed though is whenever he's played in Europe, he's showed up. When he played in the Europa League last season for Benfica, scored 5 times and assisted 1, no penalties. And this season in the Champions League, he scored 3 so far. One of those were penalties. I'm not sure if Benfica went through in their group or not.
Yeah.
But he scored 3 in the group stages. So I think he just looks like a player who, I'm not quite sure he's Liverpool level. I think he's potentially Liverpool type in a way, but I don't think he's Liverpool level. But I could be proven wrong there. I don't watch him every week. He's just a player who's, as I said, I've seen him in the Champions League. I've seen him do well in the Champions League. I think he scored against Bayern Munich potentially. And his numbers look decent. He looks like he's got quite an attractive profile. So be interesting to see if he gets any sort of move soon.
Yeah. Portugal's another league, isn't it, where people are a little bit uneasy with. Hard to try and gauge, how a move is going to play out. I mean, Bruno Fernandes done okay, I suppose.
Yeah, he was coming to my mind then as well.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of anyone else who's kind of been roaring success recently.
Ricardo Pereira, maybe. Did he come from?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Who else?
There hasn't been too many, to be fair. The goalkeeper's usually do well from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, not even success. Just doesn't feel like there's that many obvious direct moves recently that we can kind of compare. I'm sure if we sat down for 5 minutes, off air, then we'd probably draw up a list of 20 names. But one to watch anyway. Yeah, I think the thing is, whenever you're scoring goals, no matter the league, within reason, of course, but if you're scoring goals because they're such a important commodity, I think you're always going to be an interesting prospect to many clubs, aren't you? Because at the end of the day, that's the kind of bread and butter football, isn't it? Scoring goals. So if you're a player who can do it regularly and consistently, then you're always going to be a matter of interest.
Yeah, that's it. And I think over the years, you do tend to get these really top South American players in the Portuguese league. You know, you had Falcao over there, you had Angel Di Maria was over there. Oscar was Oscar from there. Maybe not, I might be wrong on that one.
Is that the one who come up from went to Chelsea and then China?
Yeah. I can't remember if he was actually, but there's been plenty of examples anyway over the years in terms of South American players from Portugal and from the Portuguese league. So I think this lad probably looks like the one at the minute who looks like to have the most potential and stuff. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. But given that we're finished, mate, with about 35 minutes on the clock, I just want to talk about some other talking points at the minute in the news regarding Liverpool. So, Phil Coutinho, he's gone to Aston Villa. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't know. He's forever being linked back to Liverpool or the Premier League clubs. Always seems to spark a debate. I think for me personally, I don't think a move to Anfield again would have ever been the right one. I think he's obviously, although he's still in his technically peak years, I guess, but he does feel like a player who's obviously maybe his best days are behind him. Hence why he's struggling to seal a move to one of the Champions League regulars. So I think it's interesting, and the obvious reason why it's interesting is because he's going to Aston Villa with Steven Gerrard. I think he's probably the key reason as to why he's went to Villa over maybe other options. Say Newcastle. Interested to see how he'll fit into that starting 11. I think he's quite clearly a good player. He's probably going to improve the 11, but just in terms of the fit, Josh, I think it's not that straightforward for me.
I'm not too sure on that one. I actually think if you look at Gerrard's system, it's like a 4-3-3, but the wide forwards are like number 10s. So I think if you put Coutinho in that system, I would probably put him as the left-sided 10. And I think he'd do pretty well there, personally. And I think when Aston Villa are maybe the dominant team or the chasing lead, maybe you could play him as one of the 3/8s, which he did at times for Liverpool, and he's done for Brazil at times. But I'm happy for him. I hope he does well. I'm interested to see how if Gerrard can get the best out of him. I think he's a ridiculous talent on his day, and I've got no idea what the 29-year-old version of Phil Coutinho looks like. But if it's anything like the player that left Liverpool, I thought his last 6 months at Liverpool were his best. I thought he was an absolute monster. I thought he was incredible. Some of the things he was doing. Then he goes to Barcelona and just completely loses his confidence. Doesn't really particularly shine in the system that leans towards Lionel Messi. But it's an interesting move, and it's one that if you'd have said to me this month, Coutinho will come to the Premier League, I'd have said Newcastle United. So to see him at Villa, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm unsure how I think it's going to go. Just because that version of Coutinho, we haven't seen him for quite a few years, have we? But maybe he just needs a consistent run in the team, and he'll rediscover his best.
Yeah, I do agree, but I do think that since he moved in particular, I've found myself having to remind people just how good he is as an individual player. Like, his individual ability is ridiculous. It's just whether he can be used in a way where he can maximise that, and I don't really think that's happened at all at Barcelona. You have to bear in mind that the Barcelona that he went to was, Barcelona the mess. Essentially, Barcelona the dark days as they started to fall. I don't think there was any plan as to how to use him when he arrived there. I think he was just bought as a good player. At Bayern Munich, he did okay, and he was used in a bit of a better way. But I think at Villa, I think he'll be inclined to run the attack a little bit like he did at Liverpool. And if he does, I think we could see some magic there because he's a great player to watch.
So you don't agree then with Michael Cox's opinion on Coutinho, where he basically said he's not very good.
Is that what he said? He's not very good.
So I'm going to bring the exact tweet up now because I'll find it now. Sorry to people who are listening in anticipation here, but where is it? Yeah, so he said originally when he left, an absolutely baffling tug of war between two clubs who have a skewed logic in favour of making a big statement. And then he basically said something along the lines of he wasn't that good. You know, he wasn't that good of a player.
I suppose it depends. I suppose it depends what he means by he wasn't that good. I do think he's in the mould of a player that you in a way have to carry a little bit. And I do think he's a bit of an odd tactical fit. Every now and then we talk about players who are like that. Pogba's a bit. I think he's a bit like Pogba in terms of how he fits into a system. I don't think he's specifically a wide forward. I don't think he's specifically a centre mid either. There's been loads of takes over the years as to whether he's a number 10. Coutinho seems to think he is, but I've never thought he's a number. He's kind of like a hybrid, a little bit of an in between. And I think if you're making them sacrifices to fit him in, he's got to be worth it. And I think at certain points over the past few years, he's been worth it, in my opinion. And I think he can win games on his own. But then at the same time, there's some frustrations attached to his game potentially in terms of how much of the attacking pie he has to have, the long shots. I think he hasn't got the biggest engine in terms of defensive work and stuff. But I suppose it depends what he means. I'd be interested to.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll add a little bit more context on that. As the devil's advocate, I guess. He said, I was a fairly lone voice at the time saying that he wasn't very good and didn't need to be replaced, which was met with scorn from Liverpool fans who insisted they needed to keep him and weren't a selling club. And then someone else has questioned something else on the thread. And his response is, I would suggest the question is more what he actually excels at, where his best position, and whether his spariodic moments of brilliance, which I think is kind of what you've just said, Josh.
Yeah, that's very similar to what I've just said,
Yeah, justify his tendency to try and be spectacular every moment. I just don't think he's that good. So, leave that to others to pass their opinions on, but that's the opinion of Michael Cox. I hope he doesn't mind us flagging it, because at very least it'll spark a debate.
No, I do think it's interesting, and what you've just said there is, I do think is very similar to what I've just said. But I do think that kind of definition that he just chased there sounds. You could apply that to Messi in a way. Moments of brilliance, and fitting him in. But obviously, the difference is Messi is the best player that's ever played the game. You obviously fit him in. It makes total sense. And I think you've got plenty of players across Europe who are like that in terms of you have to carry them. But if you carry them, they will win the game with moments for you. And I think the higher up you get, the better you've got to be to justify one of those places in the top side. And I think that's why a lot of these players end up at middle-level clubs. But I think Coutinho was one of the very, very top versions of that type of player, if you know what I mean. That type of player that you need to carry, but will deliver moments. I think Coutinho was a very, very high version of that.
Yeah, you just, as we said, you couldn't really go to Barcelona, and you just couldn't carry that second person. Messi had already took all those kind of resources, so there was no room to do that with Coutinho. I don't know why they bought him anyway, and yeah, I think like a top 4 or 5 team with him is the best player, the key cog, the kind of target of all the possession. I think he excels, and maybe that happens at Villa. That's what Grealish was at Aston Villa, wasn't he? He was clearly the best player. He was if you look at the underlying numbers last year, he was the target of most of the passes in the team. Coutinho may probably be the same now, and they might just benefit from that. But just on that point, Josh, before we move on or round up, whichever, didn't he say Villa? And this is just a Villa point more than a Liverpool one, but Villa officials made a point when at that recruitment drive post Grealish sale, saying that they wanted to spread the goals across the team. They wanted to be more of a team than reliant on one individual. If you do bring Coutinho in and make him that kind of focal point of everything, you're basically going against that, aren't you? For the player who's on loan as well.
Yeah, and I did listen to Gerrard's comments as to why he signed him. I think he was asked yesterday at our Manchester United game. And to be fair to him, one of the reasons why was because Leon Bailey's currently injured and not looking likely to return anytime soon. And I think they've had one or two players go to the African Cup of Nations. Danny Ings is obviously a little bit injury prone. So I think if Gerrard's looking at the rest of the season, what will be my downfall type thing, if there's going to be any, I think he's got a team very well drilled, and I think they're very good defensively, good at working as a team. But I think if you watch the Manchester United game yesterday in the FA Cup, I think he would benefit from having one or two output merchants in his front three. Those players who can where he can almost coach his team to be very, very well drilled as a unit, go without the ball and stuff. But then in attack, you've just got those really top individuals to go and actually win you the game. And Villa didn't seem to have that yesterday. United ended up keeping a clean sheet somehow. But I know what you mean. You're sacrificing a bit of long-term stability for short-term success by getting him in. But he is only 29. I mean, it is old, but it's not like 33, is it? So if he comes in and he does perform anywhere near like what we remember him, you can potentially keep him at the end of the season. But I think for that to be worth it, I think he'd have to be great. He'd have to be really, really good to justify paying 30 million for a 29-year-old.
Yeah, we'll wait and see, eh?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Obviously, I think he's generally split in the Liverpool fan base. Some people are still a little bit tarnished by the way he left. I understand that. Some people have moved past it because of I suppose the level Liverpool have reached since. But regardless, it's going to be an interesting one to follow. But we'll round up there, Dave. A little bit of a shorter episode this week, but thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, and we'll be back next week to talk about some games and to hopefully keep with the new theme this year of talking about talking points as opposed to strictly just match after match after match. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Do tune in, and thanks for joining us this week. See you then.